Bible hides a chilling secret about the world before the flood. A rebellion of fallen angels called the Watchers who birthed giants and unleashed chaos on earth. The Book of Enoch, revered by the apostles, reveals what Genesis conceals. Are you ready to uncover the cosmic war that changed everything? The Bible tells of a time when giants walked the earth. A time of such profound corruption that God himself chose to wash the world clean with a global flood. Genesis chapter 6 gives us a cryptic glimpse of this era, speaking of the sons of God who came to the daughters of men, but it leaves a haunting silence on the most critical details. Who were these celestial beings? What truly happened in those days? And why is the full story missing from our scriptures? What you are about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the world before the flood. The silence in the Bible was not an accident. It was a deliberate seal. The full terrifying account was preserved in a text once revered by the apostles themselves. A book that holds the key to this ancient mystery. A book that was later branded as dangerous and methodically removed. This isn't just a story about fallen angels and giants. It's about a war that nearly unmade creation. A war over forbidden knowledge. A rebellion that started in the heavens and spilled onto the earth. The decision to hide this truth was made by men who believed you were not ready to hear it. They feared it was too complex, too terrifying for a fragile faith. By concealing it, they also concealed our true role in a conflict that began long before Adam. If you have ever felt that there are parts of the Bible that are left unsaid, that there are deeper truths waiting to be uncovered, then you are in the right place. Stay with me on this journey, and if you are ready to seek the answers that have been hidden for centuries, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because what we are about to reveal was never meant to be forgotten. The story of the flood in Genesis is one of judgment. But what if the reason for that judgment is far more complex than we've been told? The scripture is strangely brief. It introduces the sons of God in Genesis 6 verse 2, and by verse 5, the world is so wicked it must be destroyed. What happened in between? The Bible gives us the cause and the effect, but it leaves out the heart of the story. It's a silence so profound it feels intentional. A crucial chapter seemingly torn from the pages of history. But the clues are there, scattered in places we rarely look. Consider the book of Job, one of the oldest texts in the Bible. God asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? While the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Job 38 verses 4 to 7. Think about what this means. The sons of God were present at the creation of the world. They existed before Adam. This single verse shatters the common interpretation that they were merely righteous men from the line of Seth. They were something else entirely, something older. This revelation opens a door to a staggering possibility. The events in Genesis 6 were not the beginning of a new sin, but the continuation of an ancient war, a conflict that began in the heavens long before the Garden of Eden was ever planted. What if the story of humanity is not the first story, but a new front in a cosmic struggle that had been raging for eons? And what if the account of that struggle was deliberately set aside? The question then becomes, why? If a detailed record of this heavenly rebellion and its catastrophic spillover onto earth existed, why is it not in our Bible? The truth is such a record does exist. It was known, read, and even quoted by the early apostles. A book so detailed, so revealing that early church fathers deemed it too dangerous for the faithful. They believed they were protecting you. But what they were really doing was hiding the key to one of the Bible's greatest and most terrifying mysteries. That silenced account, it wasn't lost to time. It was preserved in a book so ancient, it is said to have been written by the man who walked with God and was no more. A text known to Jewish tradition and the early church as the Book of Enoch. This isn't just another ancient scroll. This is the eyewitness testimony to the events Genesis only hints at. It reads like the missing chapter of Genesis chapter 6, providing the names, the motives, and the terrifying specifics of the fall. Where Genesis states, "The sons of God came down," the Book of Enoch gives us their title, the Watchers, a class of celestial beings assigned to observe and protect humanity. It names their leader, a powerful angel named Samjaza, who led 200 of these Watchers in a pact, a sworn conspiracy to defy God's command. They abandoned their heavenly post not just for lust, but to impart forbidden knowledge, secrets of heaven that humanity was not yet ready to receive. This is not some fringe theory. The proof of this book's importance is hidden in plain sight right within the pages of your New Testament. The Apostle Jude, in his short but powerful letter, directly quotes from the Book of Enoch. He writes of the false teachers, saying, "Enoch the seventh from Adam prophesied about them. See, the Lord is coming with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones to judge everyone." Jude 1 verses 14 to 15. This is a direct quote from Enoch 1:9. Think about the staggering implication. The apostles and the early believers read Enoch. They considered it scripture, a prophetic voice worthy of being quoted alongside the Old Testament prophets. So the question we must ask is not whether this book is relevant. The question is, if it was revered by the apostles, why was it deliberately set aside? Why was this detailed account of the war before the flood removed, leaving us with only the cryptic summary in Genesis? The answer reveals a decision made by men who feared this truth was too powerful for you to know. The decision to remove Enoch from the canon was not made lightly. It was a choice born from fear, a fear of what the book truly reveals. It describes a world before our own, a primordial order in the heavens. Long before Adam was formed from dust, the celestial realms were populated by ranks of angelic beings, each with a divine purpose. Among them were the Watchers, the Grigori, a powerful class of angels assigned a sacred duty to watch over the fledgling creation of earth and guide humanity from a distance. They were guardians, not gods, protectors, not participants. But pride took root in the heart of their leader, an archangel named Samjaza. The Book of Enoch recounts a specific moment, a conspiracy sworn upon Mount Hermon. It was here that 200 of these celestial princes made a pact, a binding oath to defy God's highest command. They would descend to earth, interfere directly with mankind, and take what was forbidden. This was not a moment of weakness. It was a calculated, organized rebellion, a mutiny in heaven that was about to spill onto the earth. And the account in Genesis is but the briefest summary of the resulting catastrophe. What they offered humanity was not just companionship. It was forbidden knowledge, secrets of heaven that mankind was never meant to possess. The Book of Enoch lists them with chilling specificity. Azazel taught men the art of war, how to forge swords and shields. Others taught the roots of sorcery, the reading of the stars, the signs of the moon, and the art of deception through cosmetics and enchantments. They were systematically corrupting creation, twisting God's gifts into tools of pride, violence, and rebellion. This is the origin of the profound wickedness that Genesis describes. It was a contamination, and this is the secret that changes everything. The temptation in the Garden of Eden was not the first assault on humanity. It was merely the second front in a war that had already begun. Adam and Eve were not born into a peaceful world, but onto a spiritual battlefield where the enemy had already established a foothold. The story of the Watchers is the missing prequel to all of human history, a truth so profound and so terrifying that early church leaders decided it was better to hide the details of the war than to risk explaining its true scale to the faithful. They chose silence, leaving humanity to wonder what truly happened in the days before the flood. The traditional story you've been told is simple and perhaps safer. It teaches that the sons of God were the righteous descendants of Seth and the daughters of men were the unrighteous line of Cain. Their union created a world of human wickedness corrected by the flood. This interpretation keeps the conflict on a human level. It contains the problem of sin neatly within the confines of mankind's own choices. It is a story of human failure and divine judgment, a clean narrative. But is it the whole truth? The account in the Book of Enoch shatters this simplified view. It reveals that the corruption was not merely human. It was a cosmic invasion, a deliberate act of celestial treason that infected the very fabric of God's creation. This truth was far more complex and frankly more terrifying. And for the leaders of the early church, this posed a profound problem. How could they preach a simple gospel of salvation from Adam's sin? If the world was still reeling from a much older angelic wound, how could they focus the faithful on Christ if they were distracted by stories of powerful rebellious angels? They made a choice, a human choice born out of what they believed was pastoral necessity. In councils like the Council of Laodicea in the 4th century, a decision was made to formalize the books of Scripture. Texts that were considered too complex, too apocalyptic, or that might lead to the veneration of angels, a serious problem in the early church, were set aside. The Book of Enoch, with its detailed angelology and account of forbidden knowledge, was at the top of that list. They believed they were protecting the faith, shielding believers from truths they deemed too dangerous to comprehend. In their effort to protect the flock, they built a wall around a part of our own history. They chose a simpler story over a more complicated but more complete truth. They feared the account of the Watchers would create confusion, doubt, and distract from the central message of the cross. So they removed the prequel. They sealed away the account of the first war on humanity, leaving only the cryptic clues in Genesis 6. They believed they were acting in your best interest. But in doing so, they hid the true scale of the spiritual conflict we were born into. But what if their decision, made with good intentions, had an unforeseen consequence? What if, by hiding the true scale of the enemy, they inadvertently made our faith incomplete? Look around today. Do you not see a faith that has become wide but not deep? A Christianity that often settles for simple answers and avoids the difficult questions? The very complexity they feared is the depth that many souls are now starving for. This truth was not hidden from you because you are weak. It was hidden because they underestimated your strength. Perhaps you were always meant to know this. Perhaps in these times, understanding the true nature of the ancient war is not a distraction, but a necessity. It explains the intensity of the spiritual battle we feel around us. It reveals that the temptations we face are not new inventions, but echoes of a forbidden knowledge once offered by fallen guardians. This knowledge doesn't diminish God's plan. It magnifies it. It reframes the entire plan of salvation not just as a solution to Adam's sin, but as the ultimate counteroffensive in a war that began in the heavens. Christ's victory on the cross was not just for humanity's fall in the garden. It was a victory over the ancient rebellion of the Watchers and the cosmic corruption they unleashed. It was a reclaiming of a creation that had been under siege from the very beginning. Understanding this doesn't weaken your faith. It forges it into steel. It transforms you from a simple believer into a knowing soldier in a conflict of cosmic importance. You are not just fighting personal sins. You are holding the line in a war that spans millennia. The early church may have believed you weren't ready for this revelation, but the fact that you are here seeking these answers now suggests that they were wrong. But even this earth-shattering revelation that fallen guardians corrupted humanity is not the complete story. It is merely the second act of a much older tragedy. The Book of Enoch details their descent to earth and their pact on Mount Hermon. But it begs a deeper question. What were they rebelling against? What original glory did they abandon? The answer points to a truth so ancient it predates the Garden of Eden itself, a truth about a creation before our own. Think of the opening words of Genesis. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. We have always read this as the starting point. But what if it wasn't the beginning? What if it was the aftermath? Ancient traditions, whispers, and texts even older than Enoch speak of a first order, a primordial creation of pure light and celestial harmony, a world that was shattered by the initial pride and rebellion of these same heavenly beings long before man was ever conceived. This suggests that the creation story in Genesis is not about God creating from nothing, but about God restoring order to a cosmos already scarred by a celestial war. He brought forth light into a darkness that was not natural but the result of a great fall. And this reframes everything we know about the Garden of Eden. It raises a chilling new question that has been hiding in plain sight. If the world outside the garden was already a ruin, a spiritual battlefield haunted by the echoes of this first rebellion, then what was Eden really for? Was it just a paradise for Adam and Eve to live in? Or was it a fortress, a divine sanctuary, a sealed and protected territory on a planet that was already enemy ground? The walls of Eden may not have been just to keep Adam and Eve in, but to keep something far older and far more terrifying out. This changes our understanding of God himself. He is not just a creator who spoke a perfect world into existence from nothing. He is a restorer, a king who reclaims a territory that had fallen into darkness. The 6 days of creation in Genesis were not the first chapter of history, but a divine act of restoration, a pushing back of a primordial chaos left by an ancient angelic war. God was not just planting a garden. He was establishing a beachhead, a holy sanctuary in a world already scarred by rebellion. And into this reclaimed territory, God placed his ultimate answer to the pride of the Watchers. He created man, not another angel, not another being of spirit, but a creature of dust and divine breath made in his very own image. Humanity was God's living declaration of sovereignty. We were placed here on this battlefield to be the faithful stewards that the Watchers failed to be. Our very existence is a testament to God's plan. A new order of creation intended to rule and have dominion where celestial princes had once fallen. Does this hidden knowledge threaten your faith? Or does it give it a depth you have always sensed was there? This is not a story meant to replace the Bible, but to illuminate it. It explains the ferocity of the serpent in the garden. It gives context to the spiritual warfare Paul describes in Ephesians. It shows that God's plan of salvation through Christ is infinitely more profound than we ever imagined. It is not just a rescue mission for humanity, but the final victorious move in a cosmic war that began in the darkness before time. This forgotten history does not diminish God's power. It magnifies it. It doesn't make our role smaller. It makes it cosmic in scale. You were not born into a simple morality play, but into the central chapter of a timeless conflict between heaven and the fallen realm. The early church fathers may have hidden this truth to protect you, but perhaps in these last days, God is revealing it to strengthen you. Because to know the true scale of the war is to finally understand the true magnitude of the victory that has already been won for you. And this leads us to the final, most profound revelation. A truth that was not just hidden by the church fathers, but is woven into the very fabric of Scripture, waiting for those with eyes to see. The plan of redemption did not begin in the Garden of Eden after Adam's fall. It began before the first day of creation. It was conceived in the heart of God in response to a war that predates humanity itself. The Apostle Paul tells us in Ephesians that God chose us in him before the foundation of the world. Think of the weight of those words. Before the earth was reformed from the void, before light was separated from the darkness, the answer was already in place. With this knowledge, the book of Genesis is transformed. It is no longer just a story of creation, but a story of reclamation. The command, "Let there be light," was not a simple act of physics. It was a divine declaration of war against the primordial darkness left by the first rebellion. The creation of man in God's own image was the ultimate strategic move. We were not an afterthought. We were the answer. We were created to be the faithful rulers of a realm where celestial princes had betrayed their sacred trust. The dominion given to Adam was the authority the Watchers had abdicated. But when Adam also fell, it was not the failure of God's plan. It was the moment the preordained solution was set in motion. This is the secret that connects everything. Christ was not just the lamb slain for Adam's sin. He was the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. As Revelation tells us, his coming was the ultimate answer to both rebellions, the angelic and the human. He was the perfect second Adam who succeeded where the first had failed. And he was the divine Son who triumphed over the very principalities and powers that the Watchers represented. Therefore, this hidden history, this account of the Watchers in the war before time does not lead us away from Christ. It leads us directly to the foot of his cross, revealing its true cosmic significance. The victory won there was not just for your soul, but for all of creation. It was the final move in a war that began in the darkness before Genesis 1 verse 1. The early church may have feared this truth, but you were meant to know it because understanding the depth of the war is the only way to truly comprehend the infinite magnitude of his victory. So, take a moment, let this truth settle in your spirit. The story of your faith is grander, deeper, and more ancient than you were ever taught. The questions you've held in your heart, the feeling that parts of the biblical story were missing. You were right. This hidden history does not diminish God's plan. It completes it. It places you, a child of God, not at the beginning of a simple tale, but at the victorious end of a cosmic war. For centuries, these truths were sealed away, deemed too overwhelming by men who sought to protect the flock. But we believe God is now revealing what was hidden. For a time such as this, he is pulling back the veil for those who have the courage to look. For those who are no longer content with a faith that is wide but not deep, you are not hearing this by accident. This is a divine appointment for your spiritual journey. The story of the Watchers and the flood is just the beginning of unveiling the cosmic war woven into Scripture. You're part of this divine narrative, called to stand in a victory won before time began. Don't miss the next revelation. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our journey into God's hidden truths. Support this ministry by becoming a member and help us share these life-changing insights. In the comments, share your city or state and how this truth has ignited your faith. Let's stand together as warriors of light in this ancient battle.